everybody, I'm Franny and welcome back to our third episode of our 1964 Porsche 356 series. In the first episode, if you haven't seen it, we did a little bit of an introduction, did some brake work, that was pretty cool. And then the second episode, we worked on the fuel system. So if you haven't seen those episodes, go back and check those out. They're pretty awesome. In this episode, we want to get to the valves. Now, because the fuel system was apart, the engine hasn't run and it's still stone cold. Thought it'd be a great time to check all the valve clearances. We'll go through them all and just make sure they're all where they need to be. Tools for this is pretty simple. We'll need new valve cover gaskets. Now these are double thick with a piece of metal in between them. These are reusable, which is really nice. We'll need a large ratchet and a 36mm socket in order to rotate the engine around. We've got grease in the back. We'll need that to coat our valve cover gaskets. Then here we've got a short stubby flat screwdriver. And then of course our feeler gauges. We'll need a .004 and .006. We have a large screwdriver here, and it's really more for the end of it, a nice plastic handle here to get our baling wires off the valve covers. And then finally, we've got a couple of wrenches here if we need to adjust the valves, 13mm or 14mm, depending on the rockers that are on the car. Now, the most important thing is that we need to start with a stone cold engine. All right, next thing is we need to know which cylinder is which and what is our firing order. So cylinder number 1 is forward right, cylinder number 2 rear right, cylinder number 3 is the forward left, and cylinder number 4 is the rear left. All right, great. Our firing order is 1, 4, 3, 2. So what we can do is rotate our engine to top dead cylinder, cylinder number 1, and we could begin adjusting our valves. But I have a little trick for you. If you then proceed on to 4, you can then go 4, 3, 2, 1, which puts you on one side for 2 times and then on the other side. So you're not going back and forth and back and forth. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to rotate to cylinder number 1, and then we're going to continue on to number 4, and then we'll start our adjustments. Now we'll have to pull the valve covers off on each side to get access. That's a pretty simple process, but remember it's going to leak down some oil and stuff, so make sure you put some rags or roll towel or something on the extractors back there, or you're going to get oil all over them. Now that we have our valve covers off, our next step is to find top dead center, cylinder number 1. Our first step is going to be to pop off the distributor cap here so we can get an idea where the rotor is. You sort of move that aside. The next step's going to involve turning the engine over, so kind of goes without saying that it needs to be in neutral, but make sure that you have the brake set and you have it chalked as well. We're going to rotate our engine clockwise, and what we're looking to do is to line up the rotor with the little notch that's on the top of the distributor here, and that'll tell us we're at top dead center of cylinder number 1. We just need to rotate through. All right, so here we go. Just kind of come up. Top dead center number 1. There we go. As we rotate the engine, you'll see the top dead center mark on the pulley line up right here with the notch on the top of the generator stand. And that tells us we're at top dead center, cylinder number 1. Our rotor is pointed at our notch as well. So now that we have top dead center, cylinder number 1, we're actually going to rotate 180 degrees to get to top dead center, cylinder number 4. And here we are, top dead center, cylinder number 4, 180 degrees past cylinder number 1. Our rotor is now 90 degrees from the initial mark. There we go. Back under the car, we're looking at our intake valves in the center and exhausts on the outside here. The intake clearance is .004 inches and the exhaust is .006. So I have my feeler gauge here, .004. Let's go ahead and test the intake. And you just slip this behind and you want to kind of work it between the rocker and the valve. And that's pretty tight. It goes in, but boy, it's stiff. I'd say that one's a bit too tight. Let's check our exhaust, .006. Oh my gosh, I can't get that. Oh, there it goes. Just barely got it in. Wow, that's tight. Okay. Well, both of those valves seem a little bit tight to me, so I'm going to loosen both of them. All we need is our 13mm closed-end wrench and a little stubby short screwdriver. We're going to loosen up the lock nut that's on there and then use our screwdriver on the little tappet adjustment, and we're going to back it off a little bit and then we'll lock it back down again. This is a bit of an iterative process. You usually have to go back and forth a couple of times. We double check with our feeler gauges on both valves, and when we're happy with it, we're done. All right, let's take a look at this intake first. Go ahead and loosen this up. Oh my gosh. There it goes. Back our nut off a little bit. We can back this off a bit. And place our feeler gauge up there, and we can feel it's actually too loose now. So we'll roll it in just a bit until it feels like it's kind of capturing. This is a little bit of an art. What you want is for it to feel snug, but not tight. That feels great right there. And we can run our little nut down. I like to leave my feeler gauge where it is, then come back. And the trick is to get this thing tight without it moving. How does it feel? Actually feels pretty good. Snug it down just a tad more. There we go. Pull our feeler gauge out, put it back in again. Are we happy with that? That feels great, actually. Kind of see it moves back and forth pretty easily. That's what we're looking for. Now we'll move on to the exhaust. Same process, we just loosen this guy up. Remember, we switch gauges to our .006. So you have to make sure you work it in there and get it in between the two of them. All right, that's good and loose at this point. Roll our adjustment in till it feels just like the other one. A bit of drag, but not too tight. All right, that feels great right there. I'm going to leave it. Put our screwdriver on. And tighten this guy. And go back and double check it. How'd we do? Feels great, actually. Feels perfect. All right, go ahead and cinch this down. Just one last little bit. There we go. Now that we have it cinched down one last time to make sure we're still happy with it. There we go. Fits in nicely. And that feels great. That's good, and we can feel a little movement in them now. Hear that clicky, clicky, clicky bit? Yeah, I wasn't feeling that before. That feels much better to me. All right, with number 4 done, we're just going to turn our engine another clockwise 180 degrees and get to cylinder number 3. There we go. Top dead center, cylinder number 3. Starting with the intake, .004. Oh, yeah, that's, oh my gosh, that's really tight. I don't know if I can kind of get it in if I work it in, but boy, that's way too tight. Okay, and see, we don't, almost no movement at all. All right, how about the exhaust? Same story, way too tight. Let's loosen those up and get them to where they need to be. Adjuster's too tight as well. It doesn't need to be that tight. Okay, get that a little bit tighter. That feels much better right there. All right, let's see how that feels. Still feels great. All right, we can tighten this back up. There we go. Moves a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. And look at that, absolutely perfect. On to our exhaust. Loosen this guy up. There we go. Back that up a little bit. Throw our feeler gauge in. Yep, nice and loose at this point. We can tighten this down just to where we feel it. Yeah, that feels great, actually. Roll our nut in. There we go. How's that feel? Still feel good? Yep, still feels great. Pull that down just, there we go. Just cinch it up. And that feels great. There we go. There's the clicky we're looking for. And clicky, clicky. All right, that's great. And that's cylinder number 3 done. The other side is just like this. We're going to rotate 180 degrees and we're going to do cylinder number 2 and then cylinder number 1. With our valve covers all nice and clean, and more importantly, this edge up here all nice and clean, we're all set to dress our new gaskets. And all I use is just a little bit of wheel bearing grease, just sort of normal wheel bearing grease. You can use it on new gaskets, or if you've already used your gaskets, it's fine. It's just a little bit of a coating all the way around, just hopefully to get them to seal a little bit better. And so all I do is just work it in on both sides here. Just go all the way around, just work it in until it feels pretty smooth. You don't want to use a lot, you just want to get a film over everything. You can see I don't have a lot of extra anywhere. It's not like all goopy or anything. It's just a nice film all the way around. Our next step is just to fit our gasket inside the valve cover. It only goes one way. If you try to put it in the wrong way, it just doesn't fit. It's not a perfectly symmetric trapezoid. Make sure it sits all the way down into its little shelf here. Now the grease will also help to hold the gasket in as well when you're installing it, and that's super helpful too. All right, well, fitting our cover back up is just the reverse of taking it off. The long side goes on the top, but we want to be careful when we do put it on to make sure that it seats all the way on. Put your finger all the way around just to make sure that it's not sitting up on a lip like that or kind of cockeyed or whatever. You want to make sure it's on there. You can kind of wiggle it back and forth. That also helps. All I'm going to use to put them back on is just the end of a big adjustable wrench here and my microfiber just to protect it as much as I can. Swing our baling wire up. Try to minimize the amount of scratching. Pulling this guy out a little bit. There we go. And then just push it all the way up until you hear that big snap. That snap. That's the snap you want. All right, one last double check all the way around. Because if it's off at all and a little cockeyed, it's going to leak like crazy. All right, and that looks great. Well, that was a little bit of a surprise. We found that all of the valves were tight, all of the exhaust and all of the intake. And that's exactly why we want to do this. We want to make sure that everything is set to the factory spec. It's really, really important, especially for the valves. So really good that we got that all adjusted and we got our new valve cover gaskets in, and I think we're looking really good underneath there. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down below and I'll get right to them. So, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel at this point, please do, and hit the little bell next to it to get notified, and you'll be notified every time we upload an episode. So this is gonna be pretty awesome. We have more stuff coming on the little 356C here. We have an electrical tune-up and we're gonna do the carburetors, we're gonna do a bunch of stuff. So you won't wanna miss any of that. It's gonna be awesome. And of course, we have our 3.2 Carrera project, which is running in the background as well. So all right, thank you so much for watching, and as always, a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. Until next time, safe travels. Bye.